Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world.
This was a president who touched the lives of people, not just during his presidency, but even after his death. Yes, generations of people, even after John F. Kennedy had been assassinated, would grieve and feel upset. It is November the 22nd, 2013. 50 years ago to this very day, and it was the same day, today is Friday, November the 22nd, 2013. On Friday, November the 22nd, 1963, we saw the death of, quite possibly, the finest ever US President. A much loved man, much respected man, and of course a very intelligent man as well. The 35th President of the United States. Did you know he was also a best-selling author? Yes. Even before he became president, that's what he is famous for, obviously, as you'd expect. But he wrote 3 books, 2 of them being bestsellers, one of which he received a Pulitzer Prize for. President Kennedy was the man responsible for defusing that chaotic Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, who else would you have wanted in your corner? Who else would you have wanted in charge of your country other than President Kennedy? He defused a situation which was volatile. The world was on the cusp of a nuclear war, for goodness sake. There is no finer achievement a president can have than stopping a nuclear war. Yes, when everybody else was running around insisting on military action, bomb this, bomb that, bomb these ships, President Kennedy stayed firm and resolute. Not only was he concerned for the safety of the American military and American citizens if it came to war, but he was also concerned for the enemy as well. He had no intention of indiscriminate bombing. That is probably John F. Kennedy's finest legacy. Of course, President Kennedy had many achievements while he was in office and would have went on to achieve a lot more from his first term if he hadn't tragically been assassinated, right? And of course there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that he would have been re-elected and he would have served a very successful second term. This president is about as close to being a James Bond type character as you could possibly imagine. He was also a commander, a naval commander. He commanded a U-boat in the Second World War. This U-boat got split in half by a Japanese destroyer, and he managed somehow to get the majority of his crew off the boat, and they literally had to swim for safety to this island. Kept strictly secret during his time in office, the president was also battling against a variety of terrible health issues. A serious back condition, colitis, Addison's disease. The president was battling against these health conditions throughout his time in office. He also literally came back from the dead twice. Yes, twice. The president's condition was so bad that he was read the last rites, and he came back. He came back literally from the dead twice. So what we are talking about here is quite an incredible man indeed. A lot of people will say, well, he was the one that sent America to war in Vietnam. The Vietnam War was the responsibility of John F. Kennedy. He is the one that sent the military to war. A disastrous war. An unwinnable war. He was obligated to send troops to Vietnam. I would have done the same thing. The question you've got to ask yourself is this. Right? When that war got totally out of control, when thousands of military men, thousands of soldiers, I beg your pardon, were losing their lives in Vietnam, would President Kennedy have just let it carry on? Look back to the Cuban Missile Crisis. How determined he was to save the lives of people. No ways. That war would have been brought to a grinding halt with Kennedy as president. Another mistake, you might say, that JFK made was having Lyndon B. Johnson as his vice president. Well, hindsight is a wonderful thing, right? Johnson should never have been president. The American people shouldn't have voted for him in the 1964 election. But of course they were going to, weren't they? It was an outpouring of sympathy for the late President Kennedy. That's what got Johnson elected. Johnson's handling of the Vietnam War was absolutely appalling and diabolical, okay? He is responsible, therefore, for the deaths of thousands of soldiers in Vietnam, and I'm sure, quite sure, that a lot of the widows from the Vietnam war, you know, the widows of the vets, will agree with me in saying that Johnson was quite possibly the worst president America ever had. Okay? But as I say, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Johnson, he's one of these men, right, who was born to be led, okay? Born to be led. Not a decision maker, right? Whereas Kennedy was a decision maker. He was born to lead. Right, let's just have a look at some fine photographs of the fine President John F. Kennedy, with gracious thanks to Google Images and to Yahoo Images. Obviously I didn't take these pictures myself, I wasn't born at the time. We now move on to that fateful day, 50 years ago to this very day, when JFK was assassinated on Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. That visit had been going extremely well. He was there to drum up support for his party. He was facing a tight re-election in 1964, but I have absolutely no doubt in my mind whatsoever he would have been re-elected. No doubt at all. Right? Well, the trip had been going fantastically well. Fantastic. The outpouring of joy for President Kennedy was incredible. It was there for everybody to see. Cheering crowds lining the streets. Not just in Dallas, but in Fort Worth and throughout his time in Texas. His approval rating was sky high, and so it should have been. We're now going to have a look at what happened that fateful day on November the 22nd, 1963 in Dealey Plaza in downtown Dallas, Texas. I want you to ask yourself these questions and answer them, right? What about the smell of gunpowder? What about the bullet coming from a different trajectory and causing a completely different injury to the president's head? What about the ricocheting bullet, the damaged ricocheting bullet found in the president's car? What about the bystander injured by the third bullet? What about the witnesses who said that one of the shots was louder? What about the fact that there was nobody on the grassy knoll? Ask yourself all these questions. It is from watching many documentaries, not just one, right? And doing my own research as well, that I have came to the conclusions that I have came to. Now, the main source of my findings, the main source comes from a retired Australian detective called Colin McClaren, who carried out a 4-year investigation into the assassination of John F. Kennedy. It is by far and wide, and without a shadow of doubt, the most thorough investigation ever held. And he has quite simply unlocked the truth about the whole matter. The conspiracy theories that surround the JFK assassination are incredible, right? We're going to have a little bit of silliness now. Okay, not for long, just a little bit of silliness just to prove how stupid some of these conspiracy theories are. Right? Now, we have conspiracy theories. One of them puts the driver, Secret Service agent Greer, as the man who fired the fatal shot which hit President Kennedy in the head, right? That is one of the crazy conspiracy theories. Right, well, we've had proof, categoric proof, from enhanced video footage which proves he did not fire any shot. He did not turn round to the president and shoot him. Captured in video, he wasn't holding any gun. Yes, he turned round. He turned round, and we'll go into the fact why he turned round in a little demonstration in a bit. But he didn't shoot the president. It's a crazy notion. It was totally crazy. And I can't believe anybody fell for that nonsense. I mean, surely the people in the car would have noticed this. Behind him, the governor's wife, Nellie Connolly. The Texas governor, John Connolly. Jackie Kennedy. There's a very strong possibility that one of them would have noticed if Greer had pulled a gun and murdered his president, right? He didn't do it. That is one conspiracy theory that is total rubbish, and we can now totally dismiss that because we have seen enhanced video footage which proves without a shadow of doubt that he was not pointing any gun at JFK. It didn't happen. Richard Nixon, who would later go on to be a president as well, a corrupt president, but that's for another story. Was he responsible for the JFK assassination? Well, apparently he was in Dallas the previous day, and by all accounts left in a bit of a hurry. Yes, he was a bit hasty as he left. Was he there conspiring with Lee Harvey Oswald and perhaps another gunman to shoot the president? You've got to ask yourself, what would he have to gain from this? Right? Killing the president wouldn't elevate him to high office. All it would do is what it did. Give the Democratic Party the sympathy vote which would absolutely guarantee them a second term in office. Richard Nixon had absolutely nothing to gain from assassinating Kennedy, and come on, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous notion. In fact, were you there? Were you there that fateful day on Dealey Plaza in 1963, November the 22nd? Well, if you were, quite possibly there's a conspiracy theory out there which puts you as the killer. Yes, honestly. The police officer who apprehended Lee Harvey Oswald, J.D. Tippit, right? He was in the frame. He was in the frame. Well, and that there quite possibly is the craziest of all the conspiracy theories. We can prove, and we will prove, without a shadow of doubt, that he did not do it, right? A number of years ago, I saw a documentary about the JFK assassination, a number of years ago, and this proved to me without any doubt that there was a second shooter that day, right? The President Kennedy assassination, the JFK assassination, was the responsibility of two different marksmen, alright? Because the fatal shot which hit President Kennedy on the head, right, and I'm not going to go into any graphic details in this video, okay, but it was obvious to me that that came from a different angle. It came from a different angle to the other shots that day. It came from a different angle. However, I was wrong. Well, partly wrong. I was under, and I wasn't the only one, I was under the impression that this fatal shot, the final shot fired that afternoon, came from the infamous grassy knoll. The grassy knoll. Who was there? Who was there on that grassy knoll? Let's have a look, shall we? Hey, that's me! Was it me? Was I the one that fired that fatal shot which murdered the President of the United States? Of course not. Of course not. I wasn't even born at the time. I wasn't even born. And that isn't, okay, that video clip you saw there, that isn't the grassy knoll in Dealey Plaza in Texas, in Dallas, okay? That is a grass verge next to the Lancaster Canal in England, right? So there we have it. I'm out of the frame, alright? We can say that. We can see from enhanced video, right, and enhanced photographs that there was in fact nobody there on that grassy knoll that during the time of the shooting. There was no one there. It was deserted. It's been blown up and all the rest of it. Blown up, enhanced. There was no one there. There was no one running away with a gun. There was no one firing a gun. There was no one there on that grassy knoll. So we can say that with some certainty that the shot which hit President Kennedy on the head, the fatal shot, the final shot, right, did not come from the front of the motorcade. So where did it come from? I want you to look at this chain of events. Now, on the day, the very morning of the JFK assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald was driven to work by his work colleague at the Texas School Book Depository. His work colleague, Buell Frazier. Right? Now, on that day, he actually took the gun to work with him. So straight away, suspicion is falling on his colleague, Buell Frazier. Was he in it with him? At first the police thought so. Of course, this turned out to be total folly. Buell Frazier had nothing to do with it whatsoever. You may think, well, wait a minute, he took the gun with him. Couldn't he have told somebody? Well, the gun wasn't placed in the back seat like that, okay? The gun, by the way, Lee Harvey Oswald's gun was a Carcano rifle used in World War II, a deadly weapon. A bit old-fashioned, but I certainly wouldn't like to be shot with it. In fact, nor would I want to be shot with this gun either. This gun, by the way, is legal in the United Kingdom. It is a .22 caliber air rifle. It's not a shotgun, okay? It's not a shotgun, it's an air rifle. It is legal. The only snag is you're not allowed to take it anywhere. For example, I couldn't reconstruct Lee Harvey Oswald's fatal shots from the window because I'd end up being arrested. People would think I'm trying to assassinate somebody. So we've got very, very tough gun laws in this country, and for a good reason too. Just a shame you didn't have them in America as well. Right, so the gun wasn't like that, obviously. It was wrapped up. It was wrapped up. Okay? Now, Buell Frazier, Lee Harvey Oswald's work colleague, said, hey, what's that package? It was wrapped up in brown paper. It was obviously disguised too, so, you know, you couldn't see that it was the shape of a rifle. Oswald said, well, that's curtain rods. I told you I was going to put some curtain rods up in the house. So Buell Fraser thought this was a bit odd, but well, he knew that Oswald was a bit odd. He was a strange sort of a person, a bit quiet. He certainly didn't think he was capable of murdering the president. Let's get that absolutely clear. Now, the only thing is, it was a bit naive of Buell Fraser. Now, fair enough, the gun didn't look like that in the back seat of his car, alright? Because that really would have given the game away. It was wrapped up and it looked like curtain rods. The question I'm asking myself is, why was Oswald taking curtain rods from his house to his place of work? Surely it would be the other way around. So yes, Buell Fraser was a bit naive to swallow that story, but as I say, you know, hindsight is a wonderful thing. You've got to picture that this car here is the presidential limousine. I know it looks nothing like it, right? The only similarities they have is this hasn't got a roof, and it's made from steel and it's got 4 tyres. And of course this car here, I want you to picture this as being the backup car which had all the Secret Service agents in it. Now, what you've got to remember is that all this took place in the space of approximately 15 seconds. There's some debate about this. A lot of people are of the theory it is 11 seconds. Basically a very, very short space of time. The first shot came from the Texas School Book Depository and was fired by Lee Harvey Oswald. My God, I've been hit! This bullet, which ricocheted off the ground, was found in the president's car, right? It was found in the presidential limousine. It was clear that this had been the bullet that had ricocheted off the ground because of the damage. Ricochets, as seen by witnesses, as Colin McClaren has stated in his report, ricochets, this first shot ricochets, strikes President Kennedy. We're not sure of the injury it caused. Okay? President Kennedy says, "My God, I've been hit." Okay? And this is when the driver turns round to see if the president is okay. He certainly doesn't turn around to shoot him. He turns around to see if the president is okay. Now, no sooner has he turned round, but this happens. The second shot that fateful afternoon came from the Texas School Book Depository in Dallas. It was fired by Lee Harvey Oswald. The second shot, you've got to, as I say, you've got to picture that this is the back seat of that Lincoln, right? Hits the president. The shot passes through him. I'm not going into any gory details here. Passes through him and also passes through Governor John Connolly, who is sat in front of him at a slightly lower down position, right? Passes through both the president and the governor. The third shot that fateful afternoon was fired from the Texas School Book Depository, and fired of course by Lee Harvey Oswald. The third shot misses altogether. Misses altogether. It ricochets and hits a bystander who is standing underneath the bypass. Right? He runs for cover. The fourth shot that fateful afternoon came from the follow-up car. The follow-up car from the people that were meant to be protecting the president. And it was fired by George W. Hickey. This shot, the final shot, goes off more or less at the same time as the shot from Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay, but this gunshot comes from this follow-up car, and it is fired from an AR-15 assault rifle, a deadly weapon, right? Fired accidentally by George Hickey as he picks up the gun, takes off the safety in the gun, which is bizarre. You never take off the safety in the gun unless you're ready to fire at someone. Okay? The gun goes off. A lethal weapon hits President Kennedy in the head. The bullet explodes. Right? And this is why a lot of people think that that bullet came from in front of the presidential limousine because of the action of President Kennedy's head. But no, that is what happens. His head would have went up like that. And also don't forget that President Kennedy was wearing a support that day, you know, to protect his back, which made any sudden movement very, very difficult indeed. And that, you know, that's what kept him that you know, that sort of bizarre upright position. So let's not forget that either. This prevented him from falling forward. All the pieces of this horrific jigsaw puzzle that is the JFK assassination are all fitting together. The palm print of Lee Harvey Oswald found on his gun. It's bizarre, but it's true. Colin McClaren's thorough investigation, don't forget this is a 4-year investigation. He looked into everything, alright? From the autopsy reports, sworn affidavits, video footage, the whole shooting match. He even took evidence from the Warren Commission as well. Okay, it wasn't all fabrication. Yes, that fatal shot came from the gun of George W. Hickey. How do we know this? How do we know this? We know this because it is a totally different type of bullet fired from a totally different rifle. Okay? It is not the same weapon. Not only that, but it didn't come, the shot didn't come, the fatal shot that hit President Kennedy in the head, that horrific, horrific shot, right, which shocked the world. That shot definitely did not come from the Texas School Book Depository, right? The trajectory of the bullet is totally, at a totally different angle from the other bullets. Unless Lee Harvey Oswald had done a Spider-Man impersonation, okay, he had acted like Spider-Man, floated down from the Texas School Book Depository, right? Not only that, but got himself another gun, an AR-15 assault rifle. Only if that ridiculous occurrence had occurred could we say that Lee Harvey Oswald fired that fatal final shot, right? He didn't. It was fired by George W. Hickey from his assault rifle. As Lieutenant Columbo might say, if you assume that all of this is correct, everything that you've heard today is correct, then all the other pieces of the jigsaw fit together. This explains everything. This explains the smell of gunpowder smelt by people in the other cars in the presidential entourage. Right? Bystanders. They smelt gunpowder. Where did it come from? It came from the gun of George W. Hickey. The shot that sounds louder than the other shots which were fired from the Texas School Book Depository. Why? Obviously, because they came from the gun, the AR-15 rifle, deadly weapon of George W. Hickey, who had absolutely no experience with that weapon whatsoever, as he proved on that fateful day. Safety off. How easy is it to fire a gun off accidentally when the safety catch is off? The safety catch is off in this air rifle. I put it to you, it's very easy. Watch this. Okay, I'm doing the motion of a car, okay, coming to a very, very sharp stop here, by the way. It is very plausible indeed. What may be a bit odd about the whole thing is this. Why has it taken so long for someone to come up with this theory that the final shot was fired accidentally by a Secret Service agent? For goodness sake, it's 50 years later! Well, I can tell you right now that this isn't a new theory. No, this isn't new. It's not new. There was a Donahue report, right? A Donahue report. You may not have heard of that. I'm not surprised if you haven't, because I hadn't heard of it either until I researched it. Now, this report was basically on the same lines as McClaren's report. However, it was shelved. The whole report was shelved. It was put into the urban myths category in the US Library. Right? It wasn't taken seriously. I suggest it was getting too close to the truth. It was touching a raw nerve. Right? Well, his report wasn't in vain, because with new evidence, much better photographic evidence, better video evidence, and of course with the testimonies, the affidavits, etc., all these things put together, right, we now have a very, very credible answer. An answer which, in my opinion, is explaining what happened that day on November the 22nd, 1963. I want you to have a look at this still, okay? This still from the tragic events in Dallas that day. Now, as you'll notice, there is one Secret Service agent jumping onto the trunk of the 1961 Lincoln convertible. That Secret Service agent is Clint Hill, and he is Jackie Kennedy's bodyguard. Now, the evidence proves that, okay, Clint Hill, who's still with us today, still alive today to give evidence if he wishes, the evidence proves that he was on his way to the presidential car, okay, just as that fatal shot was fired by that klutz George Hickey, right? Now this would explain, to me anyway, this explains why that photograph doesn't actually show 4 or 5 or even 6 Secret Service agents jumping onto the back of that vehicle, right? Because remember that Hickey has just fired the shot that has hit the president, and this has been noticed by other secret agents in the car, obviously, and they are absolutely horrified and shocked. Now that feeling of horror and shock, okay, takes a good couple of seconds to get over, doesn't it? And this explains, albeit just a matter of seconds, this explains that slight gap when something terrible has just happened. Bang! You know that feeling? You're aghast, aren't you? The shock. Right? This explains why, in this still here, one Secret Service agent is rushing to the car. The rest of them are still dealing with the shock that this klutz Hickey has shot and killed the president. Don't get me wrong, it is incredible that nobody actually saw him do it. Outside of the people in that secret, outside of the people in the follow-up car, the Secret Service agents. Incredible, but not, I don't know, not that incredible really when you think about it. Picture the scene, okay? Picture the scene of, let's say for example, One Direction. The pop group One Direction. They're in a car, right? They're in a car. And who's in the follow-up car? I am, along with some of my teacher friends and photographer chums. Okay? Now who are you going to be looking at? Me and my teacher friends and my photographer chums? I don't think so. You're going to be looking at One Direction, aren't you? I mean, I'm not saying we wouldn't get the odd glance, you know, there'd be, you know, the odd person looking over saying, oh, who's in that car? No, it's okay, just a bunch of bozos, you know, a bunch of unheard of bozos. You know, we're not going to be the focus of their attention. And that was the case that day in Dealey Plaza, right? And that was the case. The focus of everyone's attention was the presidential limousine. Therefore, the cameras were focused on that car, right? People's eyes were focused on that car. Everybody was focused on that car, right? Hence the reason there is no eyewitness. Although it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still incredible. It's still, you know, you still expect there to be one or maybe two. In fact, you'd expect maybe half a dozen to have actually seen that gun go off and seen Hickey fire it. But there we have it. You know, strange things happen. So it's incredible. I'll give you that. It is incredible, but explainable. We're now going to have to look into the circumstances before that tragic event, okay? The assassination of JFK, right? And the circumstances after the assassination to actually put all the pieces of this horrific jigsaw together. Right. Before, okay, before, allegedly, the Secret Service agents were out on the lash, okay, out on the randan. What does all that mean? They were out drinking, okay, they're out drinking, a lot of them to 5 o'clock in the morning, okay, out there getting totally legless, as drunk as skunks, in various bars, right, in various bars, with scantily dressed women, etc. Basically, they were out having a right good old time. Right, this was the night before President Kennedy was assassinated. The night before, right, the night before. Very unprofessional behaviour, to say the least. Very unprofessional behaviour. Totally unacceptable, disgraceful. Can we say these things? Of course we can. However, it's still allegedly. Let's not forget, I wasn't there. I never saw these Secret Service agents out there getting as drunk as skunks. So I can only say allegedly. Just like with everything I'm saying here, it is allegedly because I was not there. Right. George W. Hickey. I can tell you right now that George W. Hickey wasn't even meant to be in that follow-up car, okay? he wasn't even meant to be there. He had no experience at all of handling that lethal AR-15 assault rifle. No experience whatsoever. I put it to you that he shouldn't have even been left in charge of a water pistol, let alone a lethal weapon like that. Isn't it strange that after the Kennedy assassination, that weapon, which had been standard procedure in the follow-up car, it was standard procedure to have that weapon there, well, that weapon was removed. That weapon was removed. From that day onwards, following the Kennedy assassination, there was no AR-15 assault rifle in the follow-up vehicle. A bit stranger, isn't it? A bit strange? Yes. It was removed. Even the driver, the Secret Service agent William Greer, what was he doing? Didn't you think he was a bit slow? Well, I did. Surely when that first shot was fired and it ricocheted and it hit the president, I'm quite sure this wasn't a fatal injury, right? Why the hell didn't he hit the gas and get the hell out of there, right? Bang! God, I've been hit. What? Put the foot down, get the hell out of there. What does he do instead? He's dithering around, he's turning around, messing around. Shouldn't he have hit the gas and got the hell out of there? Shouldn't he have reacted a bit quicker than he did? In a word, yes. Now on that day, right, we had two Secret Service agents in the front of the vehicle. Greer, the driver there. The Connollys, that's the governor and his wife, in the middle of the vehicle, and of course President Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy at the rear of the vehicle. Now, this is all wrong for us. This is all wrong for a start off, okay? Because the president should have been flanked by his security. Therefore, there should have been two security personnel, Secret Service agents, armed with pistols, okay, with the safety on, sat behind. Yeah, I'm going to say Secret Service agents, not Hickey, okay, right? They should have been sat behind the president and his wife. As for the governor and his wife, they should have been in another car, not the follow-up car, the car after that. We should have had what I call a Kennedy sandwich in that car. A Kennedy sandwich, right? With security to the rear of him and security to the front of him, right? If this had been the case, the president would have survived that day. Better still, a car with a roof on it, which is bulletproof, would have been much more sensible. Following the Kennedy assassination, presidential limousines were all bulletproof, okay, with the roofs on. That would be the last time a president would ever travel through the streets in an open-air vehicle. Right, let's continue to look at events, okay, round about the time of the JFK assassination. This time we're going to concentrate on events afterwards, right? Now, straight away, we know this whole thing is a conspiracy. Straight away, right? Within 2 hours of President Kennedy being assassinated, his body was flown, right, to Washington. It is Texas state law that if a murder is committed in Texas, then the autopsy has to be carried out in Texas. That is the law of the land, right? And nobody is exempt from the law of the land, not even the President of the United States. And most certainly not the Secret Service, who are there to protect the President. And they certainly didn't do a very good job of that. Right? So straight away we know this thing is a conspiracy. We know it's a conspiracy. Straight away. Within 2 hours of this horrific tragedy occurring, we know it's a conspiracy because they flew the body of JFK back to Washington for an autopsy. Why did they do that? They did that because they wanted to cover up vital evidence. Cover up vital evidence. Now, the President's brain was removed. It sounds like something from a Frankenstein movie, doesn't it? The President's brain was removed. Why was it removed? Because it proved that the shot that actually killed him, right, did not come from Lee Harvey Oswald's Carcano rifle. That's why. It came from the exploding bullet from that deadly weapon fired by George W. Hickey. They wanted to cover up all that. They wanted to put all of the blame onto Lee Harvey Oswald. The magnitude of a Secret Service agent accidentally killing his own president was just too much to make public. It was too terrible. It was even more terrible than somebody else doing it. This is something that I do have a little bit of difficulty with. I don't understand it, to be honest with you. For goodness sake, hang Hickey out to dry. Hang him out to dry. He's one man, one Secret Service agent who made a terrible mistake. Is he an idiot? Of course he's an idiot. Should have he been left in charge of that weapon? He shouldn't have been left in charge of a water pistol. Hang him out to dry. Hang him out to dry. Come clean straight away. By the way, one of our Secret Service agents accidentally fired a shot, and we believe that it hit the President. Not the kind of thing anybody would want to admit to, but it had to be admitted to. The truth will out in the end, okay? The truth will out. Have you heard that expression before? The truth will out. And of course, back then, they didn't know that all this video footage would come to the public's attention. They thought that they could cover it all up. And also, don't forget that all these conspiracy theories played right into the hands of the American Secret Service agents who were there to protect the president. Oh yeah, all this business about the grassy knoll, all this nonsense about Richard Nixon being responsible for the killing of JFK, all this rubbish about Lyndon Johnson being responsible for it, it all played into their hands. The conspiracy theories played into their hands. And they must have thought that Christmas had came early when Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald. The only man who could expose the Secret Service for the liars that they are and were. The only man that could expose them was Lee Harvey Oswald. And this, of course, fueled conspiracy theories. It fueled them. Because Jack Ruby killed the man that could have told them the truth. Now, there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever, or certainly none that I've came across, to actually prove that Jack Ruby is involved in the whole thing. There is, however, evidence to prove that he was absolutely devastated about the death of President Kennedy. His words were, that animal, talking about Lee Harvey Oswald, has left his wife a widow and has left his children without a father. He was devastated about that. He wasn't the only person to be absolutely outraged by Oswald. He wasn't the only person. There were millions of people that would have liked to have killed Lee Harvey Oswald. Millions! But of course you can't do that, not without a trial, okay? It is not up to us to go out there and kill somebody because we believe that they are responsible for killing somebody that we like. We can't do that. That is the job of, you know, that's the job of the courts, isn't it? You know, it's the court's job to do that. Evidence went missing, right? Crucial evidence, photographs, etc. went missing, strangely disappeared after the autopsy. Vital evidence was not there to be given to the Warren Commission. Suspicious? Very suspicious. Secret Service agents had to sign a gagging order. They were banned from talking about the assassination. Why? So now it is time to blame and shame. And here goes. Lee Harvey Oswald, okay? If it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened and this video here would not be getting made. Right? Obviously. But a tragedy like this is always the result of a catalogue of errors, and if we go through them all one by one, obviously very, very quickly, we can see where these errors and faults are, right? The President himself, John F. Kennedy, cannot be taken out of the blame chain, right? It was his directive that had him in an open-topped car in the first place, and he wanted everybody to get a good view of himself and of his beautiful wife Jackie, right? Now this obviously caused much frustration with his Secret Service team, as you can imagine. Just take a look at this photograph here. His bodyguards must have had kittens. Eyewitnesses have to be questioned as well. We have 2 eyewitnesses that I have came across that actually saw the gun coming out of the Texas School Book Depository. One admittedly saw the gun and literally a second or so afterwards the gun was firing, so there's not a lot he could have done to stop what happened. But there was another witness, yes, another witness, who saw Oswald with the gun in the Texas Schoolbook Depository. A lady witness. She thought this person in the Texas Schoolbook Depository was a member of the Secret Service, there to protect the president. Well, couldn't she have perhaps mentioned the fact that there was somebody in a tall building with a gun to a police officer? I suggest if she had, then the whole tragedy may have been avoided. They could have somehow alerted the president before he got to Elm Street. And even the Dallas police, I mean to say, shouldn't there have been better policing? Shouldn't these buildings have been checked? Yes. So, I've got to come up with my verdict here, okay? Because for too long, for too long we have been saying, well, oh well, who knows what happened? It's all too confusing for my little head to understand all this. Right? Well, I'm going to come up with my verdict, okay? Based on, as I've said before, not just one documentary, because, well, there wouldn't be any point making this video. Yeah, I could just simply say, well, have a look at this documentary, it explains everything. Oh, no, 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 no. This is from a variety of different documentaries. This is from a whole lifetime of wondering what the hell happened that day? Who is responsible? Right? Well, here we have it. Here is my damning report. First of all, we'll have a look at the people who have been removed from the guild. Not guilty. Well, I have been looking into Secret Service agent Clint Hill. This is the one. This is the Secret Service agent who is first at the scene. He is the first to climb onto the back of the presidential limousine, right? And I believe while he is running towards that car, that is when that final fatal shot was fired by Hickey. I also believe him when he says he only thinks that 3 shots were fired, because I have already explained that the 3rd and 4th shots came at more or less the exact same time. The 3rd shot, remember, missing the car altogether. I believe that was intended for Jacqueline Kennedy. Missing the car altogether, ricocheting and hitting that bystander. That has been proved, right? That has been proved. So I don't believe he was involved in any conspiracy, and I also believe that he acted bravely. and he was expecting more shots to be rained down on that presidential limousine. So he put himself literally in the line of fire in his attempt to save the president and the First Lady. So, yes, I would say that this Secret Service agent, this one, single one, acted bravely, and he of course has been exonerated for all blame. Who are the guilty ones, and where can we lay the blame? Right. Guilty. Lee Harvey Oswald also shot J.D. Tippit, the police officer that day. And when I say shot, it was more an execution. He shot him 3 times in the chest and 1 time in the head, right? And there's damning evidence to prove that he was the killer of J.D. Tippit. Okay, I'm convinced about that fact. So there we have it. Guilty as charged. Now, as he didn't fire that final fatal shot, unfortunately I can only find Oswald guilty of attempted murder. Yes, George W. Hickey, guilty of manslaughter and guilty of perverting the course of justice. And he's not alone. Now, we're not quite at the stage yet where a documentary or a video like this is the be-all and end-all of everything. You watch this video or you watch documentaries like I've watched and say, right, there you have it, we've got the guilty culprit. No, no, no. We're not quite at the stage yet where a documentary can prove the guilt or innocence of someone. We do need a full-scale, right, a full-scale investigation. A full-scale investigation which will hopefully lead to criminal prosecutions, right? And it's not too late. There's a lot of people still alive to this day, people that are there, people that can testify, people that can tell the truth. So, President Obama, open it up. Let's get the truth told for the first time in 50 years. And we now close with some pictures of JFK, and we remember you, sir, as an inspirational leader and a well-loved president.
In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.